Good evening. In the news tonight, remembering the Holocaust. Western New York's Jewish community reflects and remembers. The Democratic candidates are making the final drive for the New York vote, the front runner returning to Buffalo. And when is a playground not a playground? We'll tell you tonight.
Well, the Braves win their first, but the Orioles still can't buy one.
And in weather, we have some rain moving in.
These stories and much more are coming up next on News 4 Buffalo Update.
It's 11 o'clock. Now, from Western New York's news leader, this is News 4 Buffalo Update with Rich Newberg, Brian Blessing on sports, and Maria Genero with the weather.
And a good evening to you. Buffalo's Jewish community remembers the Holocaust, a most solemn day today to reflect on the nightmare of Nazi tyranny, to remember the 6 million Jews slaughtered, and to pray that it never happens again.
I could hear the shattering glass.
A witness to Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. About 1,000 people gathered at the Jewish Center in Amherst to listen to those who witnessed that horrible November night in Germany when 267 synagogues were burned and desecrated, and when Nazis entered the homes of Jews, confiscating valuables and terrorizing families.
One Nazi grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and held me out of the window, which was 5 stories above ground level. Beneath me, Nazi soldiers were marching in goose step, singing, "Wenn's Judenblut vom Messer spritzt, da geht's noch mal so gut." When the Jewish blood spurts from the knife, life will be twice as good.
30,000 Jewish citizens of Germany were taken into custody on the night of the broken glass, and most were thrown into concentration camps.
Auschwitz, Balanoka.
A Hebrew student read the names of the death camps, and children carried 6 lit candles to remember the 6 million Jews and a world that will be no more. Children have become a traditional part of the local Day of Remembrance, for they are expected to continue telling the story when survivors of the Holocaust pass on. During World War II, some Jewish sympathizers did all they could to help Jews escape the Nazis, risking their own lives and freedom in the process. A UB professor played a vital role by helping Dutch Jews come up with new identities when the Germans invaded Holland. News 4's Pam Oliver has that story.
Many Jews escaped Nazi concentration camps by trying to prove they were someone else, anyone other than Jewish. While only 17, UB professor Dr. Karel van Os helped Dutch Jews come up with new identities after the German occupation of Holland in 1940. He did this by forging thousands of documents like this identity card, but he considers his role minor.
It was not remotely important. The organization I was connected with did all sorts of much more, to my feeling, dangerous and much more interesting things, like transporting people over the borders.
Van Os says the identity cards were difficult to alter because the backgrounds were so detailed. The large J used to identify Jews proved impossible to remove, so he and his associates stole new cards. Some people volunteered theirs. The rest came at a price.
We knew at least one mayor in a small city who sold new ones, which is very handy because then you're not even stuck with a name. You put in the name you wish.
Van Os, now a Dutch consul, has heard from some Jews he helped gain new identities, but he's not sure that the forged documents and cards always worked in preventing Dutch Jews from being captured.
It must have happened. There were many people like myself all over the place, and particularly in the beginning of your trade, you may make some clumsy work.
Pam Oliver, News 4 Update.
In a matter of hours, a verdict will be declared in the trial of John Demjanjuk, accused of being a sadistic Nazi death camp guard. The 68-year-old retired auto worker from Cleveland has been on trial in Israel, identified by 5 Holocaust survivors as being Ivan the Terrible. They said he herded tens of thousands of death camp prisoners into the gas chambers at Treblinka. The year-long trial has been one of the longest and most sensational in Israeli history. Buffalo attorney Mark O'Connor represented Demjanjuk for part of the trial. He still believes there is room for doubt in this case.
My sincere belief right now is that there is a measure of doubt in this case. I've always felt there was a measure of doubt. I've always said to you there was a measure of doubt. Now, since I've been away from the record for almost 6 months, The question is, does it arise to the level of a reasonable doubt? And for me to say that now, for me to even venture a guess as to whether there was still reasonable doubt in that record would be unconscionable, would be unethical.
If convicted, Demjanjuk could be hanged. On the lighter side of the news tonight, the weather was perfect for today's ball game at Pilot Field. Attendance records reached more than 15,000 today. Merchants with businesses nearby say they are now seeing new customers come their way. Some claim increases of 30%, and there are hopes those numbers will rise as summer approaches. Well, if you are commuting on the Thruway tomorrow, be aware that tolls went up 30% for cars and 40% for trucks today. Grand Island toll booth, the fee is now 50 cents. The hike helps pay for nearly $2 billion in repairs before the Thruway goes toll-free in 1996. And some of that repair work already going on may cause delays tomorrow morning if you are headed to the South Towns. The Thruway Authority is closing 2 eastbound lanes on the Thruway in West Seneca. Driving that route, you can expect 1 lane of traffic just east of Route 400 until Tuesday afternoon. On Buffalo's east side, there was a candlelight vigil to shed some light on the rights of crime victims. Today's vigil is part of the observance of National Victims' Rights Week. Western New Yorkers met at St. Bartholomew's Church to lend support to victims and to educate the public. The week calls attention to the devastating effects of violence on victims.
Many times a victim is shunned, and at points, maybe say 2 months later, they're saying, well, you should be over what happened to you. And a victim can take a long time to get over what happened.
Victim advocates say sometimes the worst crime of all is silence. Coming up, a former presidential candidate gives her views on Jesse Jackson and what the Democratic hopefuls are doing just before Tuesday's New York primary.